Thank you to the committee. Thanks so much for giving us this opportunity for a subject matter hearing to discuss this issue. We're here today to talk about House Bill 3941. It's a measure to bring an end to unnecessary gas heating bill hikes and restore appropriate traditional oversight to gas utilities. The legislation has wide support from Governor Pritzker, Mayor Lightfoot, the Chicago City Council, and countless organizations, some of whom you will hear from today. 9 years ago, the Illinois legislature gave gas utilities permission to charge their customers more in order to make urgent repairs, such as replacing old cast iron pipes, repairs that were needed to keep us all safe. Unfortunately, instead of just making the necessary safety repairs, the utilities are now spending money on things like installing new meters and replacing perfectly safe pipes, and we're all getting stuck with the bill. In 2013, the legislature was told that the People's Gas Program would cost a little over $2 billion. Current estimates for the cost of the program are now at $11 billion. The General Assembly was told that the People's Gas customers would pay $1.14 more per month on average, and now the average customer charge is already over $13.50 a month. We are in a heating crisis right now. Over 20% of People's Gas customers are behind on their heating bills. NICOR has raised delivery rates by 77% in 4 years. Ameren recently raised their gas rates by $76 million. And disconnection and debt are not the only problems customers face when they can't afford their heating bills. Heating your home is essential to health and well-being. Customers are struggling to keep their homes at unsafe temperatures. They're heating their homes in unsafe ways and forgoing other critical expenses like food and medicine. These harms disproportionately impact low-income consumers. I want to be very, very clear as I wrap this up. The intent of this bill is not to eliminate jobs. We want to make sure that we protect the jobs and maintain safe gas delivery systems while also making sure that ratepayers are not harmed. This legislation will not shut down infrastructure spending. It will transition it back to traditional regulatory oversight. Again, it will not end gas utility infrastructure investment. It will restore accountability. The legislative granted surcharge is already set to expire at the end of 2023. Our legislation would end it at the end of 2022. It places the infrastructure projects back under traditional regulatory oversight. So again, I look forward to continuing these conversations with all of our stakeholders. And I know we have a long list of people, so we've asked our witnesses to keep it brief, under 3 minutes. And I thank you for your time and indulgence, and I will pass it on to our first speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Mason. And again, let me reiterate, we have a lot of people that want to testify, so I would ask the witnesses that are presenting their testimony to keep it under 3 minutes if possible. I'm going to kind of stick to a strict guideline on that, so I would appreciate it if you would do that. We'll go through all the witnesses and then take questions from the committee after the witnesses are done on both sides, okay? So with that, I have Abraham Scar from PERG.
Thank you. Chairperson Walsh, Vice Chairperson Delgado, Spokesperson Wheeler, honorable members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Abe Scar. I'm the Director of Illinois PERG. I want to thank Rep. Mason for her ongoing leadership, Governor Pritzker for his support, and the 36 members of our coalition. The case for ending the QIP surcharge are significant. I will make 4 points, and I have more in my written testimony. First, wasteful utility spending through QIP is hiking customer bills. People gas customers are paying more per month than the legislature was told they would be paying per year. Over the past 4 years, Ameren has raised delivery rates by 27% and NICOR by a remarkable 77%. Second, the utilities cannot justify their spending based on safety. You will not hear any evidence explaining why such massive spending at such a fast pace is needed to address any specific safety risk. Third, QIP shields utilities from meaningful regulatory oversight. Out of the more than $4 billion the utilities have spent under QIP, not a single cent has so far been disallowed by the Commission. In 2018, the ICC held that the law meant that it could not reform the failing People's Gas Pipe Replacement Program despite a damning audit and universal recognition that the program is unaffordable for broad swath of the city. Fourth, encouraging massive investment in fossil fuel infrastructure does not make sense as Illinois works to address climate change. In 2019, I co-authored a report detailing the failures of the People's Gas Pipe Replacement Program, the executive summary of which I have appended to my written testimony. Today, I'm going to focus on NICOR and make 2 points. One, QIP is a major contributor to NICOR's remarkable rate hikes. After rising by only 28% over 37 years, NICOR has raised rates by 77% in under 4 years. Rate increases in utility profits are largely driven by capital spending. NICOR's capital spending sharply increased since it began using QIP in 2015. Since then, QIP has accounted for half of NICOR's capital spending, making it a major contributor to the company's massive rate hikes. Two, there's no safety justification for this aggressive spending. NICOR effectively replaced its cast iron main over decades without big rate hikes. It has spent more than $1 billion through QIP after it replaced its last cast iron main in 2018. NICOR's leak rate per mile is well below the national average and the average of peer utilities, meaning its system is relatively safe and not in need of accelerated investment. NICOR is spending aggressively on transmission, which it justifies by pointing to a federal rule. As I detail in my written testimony, this rule in no way supports such massive accelerated spending. In conclusion, over the past decade, through formula rates and QIP, Illinois has stripped away regulatory protections, supercharging the utility incentive to spend money to make money and raise rates as fast as they can. The utilities have responded to these incentives with billions of dollars of wasteful spending. This is not surprising. It's exactly what we should expect. The question now is, how will the General Assembly respond? Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'll be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Abe. Next, we'll recognize Donna Carpenter from Power Pack.
Good morning. My name is Donna Carpenter. Thank you all for allowing me to testify today. I'm a mother, grandmother, caregiver, and a resident of Englewood community on the south side of Chicago. I am a parent leader with Power Pack Parent Organized to Win, Educate, Renew Policy Action Council. Power Pack is made up of 100 parents from across the state working to create community that support families, and we are supported by community organized families issues known as COFI. We've been hearing about these same QIP charges for years. That has been passed on to the customers. They continue to cause more and more harm to low-income Black and Brown communities. In Englewood community where I am, and back in October 2021, over half of the people in Englewood has been behind on their gas bills. Last month, my IQ charge was $16.71. This month, it was up to $20.82. That is absolutely unacceptable. I'm paying $435 this month for gas. I have no idea how I'm going to pay that. That is more than half my rent. Representatives, y'all need to act now to help us. The gas companies are supposed to be keeping us safe, but they're not. When our gas bills are so high, we have to make choices to keep our homes really on cold temperatures or which days we're going to cook not to use so much gas. We should not be put in those situations to make unsafe choices. I'm sorry. This is very dear to my heart, guys, so just bear with me. Are you going to be champions on this issue? It has been going on for too long. We need you to step up and support us on this. You are in charge of these companies. Make them do what they're supposed to do. We appreciate your support and take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Next, we'll recognize Karen Lusson from the National Consumer Law Center.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Welsh and distinguished members of the House Public Utilities Committee. My name again is Karen Lusson. I'm a staff attorney at the National Consumer Law Center. Since 1969, NCLC has worked for consumer justice and economic security for low-income and other disadvantaged people in the U.S. through policy analysis, advocacy, publications, litigation, expert testimony, and trainings. Today, I appear on behalf of community organizing and family issues in support of House Bill 3941 and ask that you vote yes on halting the needless ratepayer subsidization of what has been runaway spending on the gas delivery service network throughout the state. That ability to spend with minimal oversight, as allowed in the statute, has created a heating affordability crisis that Ms. Carpenter so eloquently highlighted, particularly within the city of Chicago. Representative Mason and Mr. Scar have already highlighted the rate impacts that have resulted from the runaway spending that Rider QIP statute has enabled, so I won't repeat them. This morning, I want to note some statistics that reveal the struggle ratepayers are under to afford essential energy services that further support ending this special surcharge. We know from data published by the Energy Information Administration that 1 in 3 persons in the United States struggles to afford essential utility service each month. They're faced with the difficult choices of juggling bills for food, rent, medicine, and other life essentials as they try to keep the lights and heat on. Here in Illinois, data filed each month by the gas and electric utilities by zip code reveals substantial unaffordability among residential customers, particularly for Chicago's people's gas customers. For example, in the month of December, NICOR, which serves 2 million residential customers, had arrearages, that is unpaid bills of more than 30 days past due, totaling nearly 33 million, a sizable sum, no doubt. But People's Gas, which serves 802,000 residential customers, which is 60% fewer customers than NICOR, had arrearages totaling 76.7 million, more than twice the NICOR amount. For customers living in Englewood, more than 50% of the population had arrearages of more than 30 days past due during October of 2021. Compare People's 76 million in arrearages with ComEd's December arrearage totals, which amounted to 60.8 million. Again, a sizable sum. But People's is nearly 17 million more than ComEd's arrearages, notwithstanding the fact that ComEd is more than 4.5 times as many customers as People's. Also, 20% of all People's Gas accounts were eligible for disconnection, as reported by the company in the third quarter of 2021. Unless the General Assembly ends this unnecessary surcharge now, ratepayers will be stuck paying for stranded assets of a gas delivery system that will eventually become obsolete and not a part of the clean energy future that this legislature envisioned when it passed the Clean Energy Jobs Act and asked ratepayers and utility companies to move away from carbon and methane producing energy. We urge the committee and General Assembly to vote yes on House Bill 3941 and end the surcharge at the close of this year. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we'll recognize J.C. Kibby.
Thank you, Chairman Walsh, and thank you, members of the Public Utilities Committee, for having me today. I'm J.C. Kibby, Senior Illinois Clean Energy Advocate with Nrdc, the Natural Resources Defense Council. Nrdc has more than 37,000 members and activists in Illinois and more than 50 staff in our Chicago office, including attorneys, scientists, and policy experts. I speak today in support of HB 3941 to end the QIP surcharge. You've already heard that the QIP is costing Illinois families. It cost me personally more than $15 last month, more than People's Gas said it would cost in a year. My last bill had more than $95 in infrastructure charges in total. These big charges are worrying, and so is what they pay for. They're building out a gas system to burn methane gas, a fossil fuel, much of it in our homes. To be clear, this gas is no more natural than coal. Burning gas harms our health by releasing carbon monoxide and other pollutants in the air in our homes. This pollution disproportionately hurts underserved communities and people of color. Gas burned in buildings also accounts for about 1/5 of Illinois' planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions, and they have gone up significantly in the last few years, in contrast to the slow progress we've made in the power sector. Scientists say that to avoid catastrophic climate change, we have to cut our greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030 and to 0 by 2050. It will be nearly impossible to meet these goals unless we begin to move away from gas. In short, the gas system as we know it is not compatible with a livable climate. Yet the QIP is driving us to double down on that system when we can least afford it. We should be carefully reviewing which gas investments are absolutely urgently needed, especially given that independent analysis has found, as Abe mentioned, that existing gas spending has done little to improve leaks or safety. We must not allow billions of dollars in additional gas system spending into the rate base through the side door with limited oversight, and that means ending the QIP. To protect our health, our wallets, and our climate, we should create a planning process to identify the cleanest and most affordable way to heat our homes. Heat pumps, two-way air conditioners that can heat and cool, are one solution. They're often cheaper than fossil fuel heating systems like gas. A planning process would let us look at all the options on the table to keep Illinoisans safe, comfortable, and financially secure. The QIP is an answer to the question, how do we keep delivering more and more fossil gas forever into the future? In 2022, that's the wrong question. Just like we're not asking how to deliver more whale oil or how to build a better typewriter. The QIP locks us into a system that's giving us high bills, health problems, and a catastrophically hotter planet. Let's stop throwing good money after bad with the QIP and start looking at all our options to keep Illinoisans safe and comfortable. Thank you for your time, and I welcome questions from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Kibby. Next, we'll recognize Jeff Scott from AARP.
Thank you, Chairman Walsh. Hello, my name is Jeff Scott, Associate State Director for AARP Illinois. AARP is pleased to speak today in support of House Bill 3941, which would repeal the costly and unnecessary natural gas surcharge. Repealing the surcharge on natural gas bills will return the cost recovery to traditional regulation, which allows for more thorough and effective regulatory scrutiny of natural gas spending. AARP advocates on behalf of its 1.7 million members, 250,000 of whom live in the city of Chicago. As a part of that advocacy effort, we have worked to fight against the Qualified Infrastructure Plant surcharge and the gas company's assault on ratepayers' pocketbooks since its inception almost a decade ago. We consistently hear from our members that their utility bills force them to make extremely difficult decisions that sometimes, unfortunately, affect their health. Many of our members are on fixed incomes, and they must make unfortunate decisions between other necessities such as food, medicine, rent, or just simply taking care of themselves and their loved ones by living in hospitable conditions. The General Assembly allowed this surcharge to go into existence and could just as easily take away this money grab system if they chose to do so. Offering these large utility companies a blank check with no or little oversight has not only caused natural gas bills to soar, but has also no doubt played a part in the 1/3 of Chicagoans' unfortunate present circumstance of being behind on their natural gas bills. The surcharge was sold as a safety issue. However, it is just a cost recovery mechanism that is not needed. For years, the companies have been allowed to continue their free rein on spending while simply charging the cost back to consumers with a guarantee that the bill will be paid. These are the same companies who had failed to properly maintain their infrastructure around the city and now have the audacity to act if they could have done nothing about it without this surcharge. Ending this rider does not end natural gas infrastructure investment. It simply ends the almost immediate and automatic cost recovery. If the utilities investments are in fact reasonable and prudent, there is no reason they cannot continue making investments and recovering the cost under traditional regulatory oversight by the ICC. We implore this committee and the entire General Assembly to recognize that now is the time to sunset these costly programs and begin to bring relief to Illinois ratepayers. Let's begin to make Illinois utilities affordable. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. And last one we have on the list for proponents is Brian Mcdaniel with Cub. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Good morning, everyone. Appreciate you being here. Low natural gas prices are no longer camouflaging overly aggressive utility spending enabled by this surcharge. By law, utilities are already required to keep the system safe and reliable, whether they have a surcharge that enables them to raise our rates more quickly or not. You've heard it before. I just want to make sure you heard it. This legislation will not shut down infrastructure spending as the utilities will claim. It will simply transition it to regular traditional oversight. Opponents will tell you it's not time to stop investment in infrastructure and tell you you're doing something valiant by not passing this bill here today. But this, I want to point out as well, this accelerated spending has been going on for close to a decade now. It will slow down, this bill will slow down accelerated spending and rate increases. Regular spending will still occur. I also want to point out infrastructure bills didn't exist at the time this surcharge was passed. Now there's two. There's a state capital bill and a federal capital bill. So now is the time to slow these utility trains down because people are falling off of them and it's only going to get worse. Safe and reliable is exactly how a utility is required to keep their natural gas delivery system. That is an exact quote from the Public Utilities Act. Safe and reliable, whether they have an accelerated rate increase surcharge or not. This is a responsible bill that does not sunset the surcharge upon enactment, but rather waits to sunset the surcharge until the last day of this year, giving utilities plenty of time to adjust their spending plans and consumer rate increases along with them. So I thank you very much for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Clerk, is Representative Vella on the roll?
We can add him right now.
Please do. All right. On the opposition side, first up, we have Patrick Evans with the Illinois Energy Association. Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I really appreciate you taking time to hear about this important issue this morning. I am Patrick Evans, president of the Illinois Energy Association. I was asked to give a brief overview of how we got to where we are with this rider. I was here in 2013 when we negotiated the bill, and I have some historical context of why this rider was used and how it's been used to help the people of the state of Illinois. So let's give some historical context of how we got here. Back when I was on legislative staff in 2000, there was an incident outside Carlsbad, New Mexico, in which 12 family members were killed by a steel natural gas pipeline explosion. That tragic incident prompted action at the federal level. So for the first time in a long time, we actually ended up with new federal legislation, the Pipeline Safety Improvement Act of 2002. So what we see is the rules really started to change around 2002 with how gas utilities had to operate with regards to our pipeline integrity programs. That continued to help guide interstate transmission improvements until about 2010. 2010, there was another tragic incident in San Bruno, California. San Bruno, California, another steel pipeline explosion occurred. This destroyed 38 homes, injured 58 people, and left 8 fatalities. At the time, Illinois' own Ray LaHood was Secretary of Transportation. And in response to this tragic incident, he actually issued a formal call to action requesting that all natural gas utilities in the country begin to accelerate their pipeline replacement program to ensure that these incidents are minimized in the future. As part of that call to action, we began a conversation with the regulators and legislators in Illinois. Ultimately, that resulted in an agreement. That agreement would be that we would eliminate what we refer to as regulatory lag when it comes to these improvements. Regulatory lag, that term simply means that we get to recover our investments quicker than the traditional method, which requires us to go to the commission first. It does not eliminate commission oversight. We will always have to prove up our investments at the commission. The standards have not been changed. And contrary to everything we've heard, the commission can disallow and review all these expenses based on the same standard that existed before we approved the rider. As we have gone through this process, the commission has agreed with our utilities that these investments were prudent. So it is true. The commission has not disallowed these investments, but that is because we are meeting the standards spelled out by the commission and by the laws of the state of Illinois that these investments are prudent and needed. 22 states responded to Ray LaHood's call to action. So we are one of 21 other states who implemented some sort of advanced mechanism to make these investments. And that's how we got here today, responding to a safety need to do critical investments in our state to benefit not only the safety, but the environment, and in cutting down on methane leaks from the natural gas system, which is a lead cause of climate change. So we encourage you to continue with the program as it is in current law. Thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Next up, we have Eric Kozak from Ameren, Illinois.
Thank you, Chairman Walsh and members of the committee. I'm Eric Kozak, Vice President of Gas Operations from Ameren, Illinois, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I want to share with you a quick story. When I started, one of my first leadership roles was to be a gas supervisor in East St. Louis in 1997. And one of the first things you do as a supervisor is you go and look at your leakage backlog. Well, how many leaks do they have? In most areas, we had a 1-inch binder that contained a sheet of paper for each leak we were monitoring. In East St. Louis, there wasn't a binder. There were 2 file drawers full of leaks. In fact, there were over 800 leaks at that time. Fast forward to a couple weeks ago when I visited East St. Louis. I gave a presentation that I give to all my operating centers every year. 4 members of that room were there with me in 1997, and they were proud to say that they did not have any leaks on the books in East St. Louis. And why is that the case? Because back then we had a lot of mechanically coupled steel, and today we have very little. You know, that's just one example. That story takes place over decades, but the current regulations are allowing us to cut that time down for many other communities across the state. To date, we have replaced over 350 miles of mechanically coupled distribution lines in Ameren, Illinois. Another focus area for us is transmission. These are the large 12, 16, and even 30-inch pipeline diameters that operate at hundreds of pounds of pressure, some as high as 800 pounds of pressure. They're the backbone of our system. Almost half of these lines were put in before there were any federal regulations. Over the 1,200 miles we have, over half were put in before there were any federal regulations. So we've replaced about 100 miles of these transmission lines. But in order to meet the new PHMSA regulations, the more stringent rules, there's another 100 that have to be tested or replaced, and at the cost of around $3 to $5 million a mile, depending on where they're located. So 100 miles of transmission and 350 miles of distribution, that sounds like a lot of pipe. But given that our service territory is larger than the state of Indiana, over 43,000 square miles, and we have over 18,000 pipeline, it represents a small portion of our system. So let's set the record straight. The proper investments are being made, and there is strong oversight by the ICC. The defined rate caps are protecting customers. 90% of the current high prices are being driven by global demand and prices, not this act. This provides around 500 good jobs annually and creates opportunity for diverse contractors. And modernizing the system sets the stage for the state of Illinois to become a leader in utilizing renewable natural gas, synthetic natural gas, and even hydrogen, which can attract new businesses and retain industry. So lastly, proponents will tell you that the utilities aren't accountable. Well, let me tell you about accountable. When a call comes in, when somebody's dug into a natural gas line or there's a gas leak call, we respond 24/7, 365. And on average, we're there within 20 minutes to protect life and property. That's accountability, and I couldn't be prouder of the diverse men and women on my team that make that happen every day. The legislature got it right when it passed the Natural Gas Consumer Safety and Reliability Act. It's effective, it's affordable, it's necessary. Now's not the time to take steps backward. Thank you for allowing me to share my perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Kozak. Next up, we have Mr. Binswanger or Mr. Whiteside from NICOR.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Binswanger is here for questions, will not be speaking.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Whiteside. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations with NICOR Gas. On behalf of the company, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to speak to you today about the importance of QIP, which benefits NICOR Gas customers through investments in safety and reliability of our systems, and through jobs, economic development, and supplier diversity in our service territory. Today, I will briefly talk about the drivers for our QIP program, the types of investment NICOR Gas has made under the statute, and the continued need for ongoing investment in these areas, the benefits of the program, describe the ICC's oversight of our investments and the typical residential bill impact for Nicor Gas. These focused infrastructure investments allow our system to keep our region warm and safe throughout the coldest days. Nicor Gas's system was able to support our customers and communities through the polar vortex of 2019, the single largest delivery of energy ever recorded on our system without interruption to service or poor pressure situations for our customers. By replacing poorly performing materials, we are driving leak rate trends down and reducing greenhouse gas emissions across the overall system. Since the inception of QIP, Nicor Gas has made system improvements that include replacing over 1,000 miles of unprotected, coupled and bare steel mains and cast iron while eliminating low pressure systems. We've replaced over 122,000 high leak rate copper and aging services associated with main replacements, and additionally addressing moving inside meters outside. We've replaced 71 miles of our highest risk transmission pipeline, and we've replaced 54 miles of transmission gathering lines and gas conditioning equipment in our storage fields. QIP continues to improve our customers' convenience by moving gas meters from inside to outside. This enhances customers' experience, eliminating the need for appointments, and enables safer, more rapid access to our facilities in emergencies or for maintenance and repair. There remains a real need for the QIP statute, as Nicor Gas has facilities requiring replacement which fall into the existing definition of a qualified investment. The men and women of Nicor Gas, along with our labor partners, manage and maintain approximately 33,400 miles of gas main on our system. Of Nicor Gas's total current system, approximately 475 miles are mains installed before 1950. 3,890 miles of the main was installed between 1950 and 1959, and 7,000 miles installed between 1960 and 69 before there were federal standards. Additionally, approximately 7,200 miles of these gas mains are coupled steel. Nicor Gas's continued focus on safety and reliability include the planned investment of replacing 100 miles per year of bare and vintage gas main and the aging services associated with them. Continued moving of gas meters from inside of homes to outside. Nicor has approximately 81,000 remaining inside meters eligible for move out, and replacing our highest risk transmission mains, which our current focus is our Dubuque line, which was installed in its entirety in 1951 and is 115 miles from Dubuque, Illinois to Elgin. Nicor Gas's QIP investments are supported by the employment of pipeline partners and service providers who contract labor throughout the region, providing stable income and benefits to individuals and families, adding to the state's tax base. Nearly 50% of the dollars that Nicor Gas invests in QIP are spent with diverse suppliers. Nicor Gas's QIP program annually provides work for IBEW Local 19, our own labor partners, as well as the members of the Labor District Council, Operators United Union Local 150, and the Pipe Fitters Local 597, who are employed by the contractors we partner with to execute on QIP projects. On average, the QIP program supports approximately 1,120 full-time jobs annually. Every year, Nicor Gas's QIP investments are subject to review not only by the ICC, but by other parties, including the Office of the Attorney General and the Citizens Utility Board. Any surcharge collected is subject to review by the Commission to determine whether the investment is eligible under the QIP law, as well as if the investment was prudent. Any ICC disallowance would require Nicor Gas to refund any amount collected to our customers. Every year, the company is required to make a filing with the Commission under reconciliation dockets. The Office of the AG and others have been an active participant in examining our filings. For example, in the reconciliation docket for 2018 alone, the ICC staff and the Office of the AG issued more than 150 data requests on the company that had multiple subparts. They also filed testimony and briefs regarding the prudence and reasonableness of the costs. Of note, the average residential QIP charge over the life of the program for a typical Nicor Gas residential customer is approximately $1.18 per month. QIP continues to provide for thoughtful, focused investment in our natural gas transmission and distribution systems, allowing Nicor Gas to continue to provide safe, reliable energy services, to the customers and businesses of Illinois. I thank you for the opportunity to address the committee, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteside. Clerk, could you add Representative McCombie to the roll if she's here?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Torrance Hinton from People's Gas. Please proceed, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Walsh and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Torrance Hinton, and I am Vice President of Operations for People's Gas. I testify today in opposition of HB 3941. As many of you know, People's Gas provides natural gas service to over 900,000 homes and businesses in the city of Chicago. The Safety Modernization Program, SMP, is our safety initiative to upgrade one of the oldest natural gas networks in the United States, with more than 2,000 miles of deteriorating natural gas pipes throughout Chicago, many of which were installed more than 100 years ago. A recent independent study ordered by the Illinois Commerce Commission, known as the Kibby study, puts into sharp focus the challenges the city of Chicago faces with regards to the natural gas infrastructure. The Kibby study, issued just 2 years ago, found that more than 80% of the iron natural gas pipes in Chicago have an average remaining life of less than 15 years. For those who would say our infrastructure upgrades are not about safety, I would point out the concerns about the safety of Chicago's aging pipes are so acute. The study urged that the pace of our work be accelerated to complete that work by 2030, rather than by the current 2040 target. In addition to making investments to make Chicago safer, SMP also provides more than 1,200 family sustaining full-time jobs. An additional 4,800 indirect jobs are created by SMP's ripple effect across Chicago's broader economy. A recent study proved that the economic impact of our SMP program alone is $1 billion of additional wages in the pockets of local workers. Beyond that, since 2016, Peoples Gas has spent more than $292 million with minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses on SMP. Over the next years of SMP, Peoples Gas expects to spend about $52 million per year with diverse businesses. Our work is closely monitored by state regulators. That monitoring was built into the 2013 law. It imposes a 4% cap that limits the annual cost that may be recovered through customer bills. Every year, the Illinois Commerce Commission also conducts a detailed investigation dedicated solely to whether the work we perform and spending on that work was prudent. In addition, we file quarterly reports and annual SMP update reports with the ICC, where we are measured on over 50 metrics concerning costs and performance. We understand there is a cost to updating our system. That is why last year our customers received more than $41 million in financial assistance through our Share the Warmth program, the Percentage of Income Payment Plan, as well as the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, or LIHEAP. As we transition to a cleaner energy future, some have suggested that policymakers simply replace Chicago's natural gas infrastructure and force consumers to invest in an unproven electric heating system for their homes and businesses. Unfortunately, this policy change would take decades to complete and cost tens of billions of dollars for the customers we serve. Our efforts to update our system with modern materials will also deliver environmental benefits by reducing methane leaks in the old cast iron pipes and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Our company has committed to net zero methane emissions by 2030. Finally, we are well positioned for the future with SMP. In addition to improved fuels such as renewable natural gas, or RNG, and hydrogen, gas heat pump technology is currently available in commercial applications and will be available for residential markets in the next 1 to 2 years. I thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning, and will also supplement my oral testimony with written testimony. Thank you, Chairman Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. Hinton. Next up, we have Mark Poulos with Local 150.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Mark Poulos, Executive Director of the Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa Foundation for Fair Contracting, Labor Management Group of the Operating Engineers, Local 150. I'm here this morning to encourage continued investment in our gas distribution systems and oppose House Bill 3941. Much like the state balances the interests of consumers and utilities, FFC balances the interests of labor and management. Thus, we understand the sometimes difficult intersection of competing interests when making long-term decisions. Nevertheless, you are charged with ensuring adequate, efficient, reliable, safe, and the least cost public utility services while promoting the development of an effectively competitive energy supplier. From 2018 to 2021, the hours that were generated by the SMP program mentioned a few times today were the largest hour generators in Local 150's entire jurisdiction. Furthermore, across America, governments at all levels continue the fiscal conditions that limit their ability to provide more and better services. In these tough budgetary times, however, governments need to spur long-term economic growth by finding ways to increase rather than curb internal investment. The SMP program does just that. While we hear much about unfunded pension liability, we hear little about unfunded infrastructure liability, even though our unfunded infrastructure liability nearly tops our unfunded pension liability. Moreover, infrastructure investment has a net positive effect on the overall economy. Economic research and simulations reveal that physical infrastructure investment spending enhances economic growth and boosts employment. At the federal level, increased infrastructure spending generates $1.59 for every dollar invested, and the oil and gas industry nearly $2.05 for every dollar invested, not to mention the need to meet the mission of providing an efficient, reliable, and safe system. It's no secret that the nearly 2,000 miles or 40% of the system for People's Gas alone to be replaced through this program is necessary because of the decaying nature and aging pipe within the current infrastructure. The S&P program is not only providing for an efficient, reliable, and safe gas distribution system, but an infrastructure investment that has developed careers that sustain families. Just to put it in perspective, in the years 2018 and 2019, People's Gas spent nearly $500 million each year in infrastructure investment. To put that into more perspective, people spent a total of $885 million on capital projects during the periods 1990 through 2000. Curtailing the QIP is simply not in line with the best interests of the state nor the conventional wisdom of infrastructure investment. We simply do not wait for system failure in order to address infrastructure investment. Rather, we assess the needs and address the investment after careful consideration of all competing interests. I would like to just take a quick moment just to note that some years ago when I was in law school, I actually ran the leak detection crews for Nicor Gas. So I worked for an engineering company called Corpro. And at that time, we were running through a system to determine through a fuel ionization program whether or not there were leaks in the system. And as was mentioned by Amarin, was staggering at that time that a lot of these low pressure cast iron main systems were leaking every foot or 2 feet that you would walk through in places like Maywood and others. This was the process that then developed the need for this system replacement. So I would say in these uncertain times, it is not time to curtail infrastructure investment, and we would ask for your opposition to the ending of the QUIP program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poulos. And last but not least, we have Mark Densler from the Illinois Manufacturers Association.
Thank you, Mr.
Mark.
Chairman. I promise to be very brief. Mark Densler, President and CEO of the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Appreciate the opportunity. Energy policy is critically important, and there's no one who's impacted more than our states and America's manufacturers. Just for background, manufacturers use 1/3 of all energy consumed in the United States, and we're committed to find ways to reduce costs, promote sustainability, develop new energy solutions. I would just, it goes without saying, but we are committed to a cleaner environment. We've been innovating and using technology over the last decade. Manufacturers have reduced emissions by 21% while increasing output by 18%. We've reduced emissions by more than any other sector since 1990. But to do this, manufacturers rely on a safe, efficient, and low-cost source of energy. We need a strong and resilient energy grid to make sure that our system is stable. You've heard it from others today, and while we don't always like paying higher costs, Mark Poulos kind of alluded to this, we understand the need to invest in infrastructure. A couple of years ago, we stood with the governor when Illinois passed the infrastructure bill. There was an additional hike on gas and other things, but we understood the importance of investing in our roads and bridges, and our energy infrastructure is no different than that. And as Patrick Evans correctly noted earlier and others, these investments and recovery costs require ICC approval. We support efforts to build and maintain our grid's infrastructure that's critically important to the reliability of our homes and businesses. We understand that these investments are not free. There will be some cost. We also understand the ICC has a role in overseeing that to make sure that they are prudent. We know that our utilities, whether it's electricity, it's gas, it's water, have produced significant increases in reliability over the last 10 to 15 years that's been alluded to today, and it's incredibly important for the business community. So we are opposed to this legislation. We support continued infrastructure investment. We need system reliability and safety, and this legislation will reduce that investment. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I will cede back the remainder of my 3 minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Quickly, just before we go to questions, we do have some folks from the ICC. Do you guys have any comments, or are you here just to answer any questions that the committee may have?
Hi, Mr. Chair. This is Jim Zolnarek. I'm the Chief of the Public Utilities Bureau at the ICC, and we are here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Jim. All right, first off, before we get to questions, I've got a couple. To the opponent, so this started in 2013, if I'm correct, right?
Yes.
And so what was the surcharge? And this goes on the delivery section of a bill. So whether you're a People's customer, a Nicor customer, or Ameren customer, this is on the delivery charges portion of your gas bill, correct?
Yes.
What was the cost of that surcharge in 2013 compared to today? Does anybody have that number?
I think each company's gonna have a different number, so I would turn it over to them.
Let's just say on an average, was it a 3-cent charge on a therm, or was it a half a cent charge on a therm? And then what is it today?
I would actually ask the companies to answer that question because they're more familiar with it. I would say that, you know, so the committee understands how this works. When you put a charge on the rider, when you go to a rate case, the commission determines whether those were prudent investments. And if they were, and so far all have been deemed prudent, they get rolled into your base rates. So the rider is just an indication of what you're collecting between rate cases. But I would let the individual companies respond.
So just so I'm clear, the set cost is what it is. So, and I'll just use the 3 cents a therm. And then each year they go to the ICC for this surcharge.
It's not required to do it annually. In fact, this was designed to prevent annual rate cases because of the burden, not only on the commission, but on the companies, and the ultimate cost of litigating a rate case every year would go back to the customers. So each company has a schedule that they themselves work with the commission. The commission always has the authority to call companies in for rate cases if they believe the companies have a situation where the rates need to be adjusted.
Has the commission done that since 2013?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So when do Nicor, Ameren, Peoples, when do you go and justify your costs before the ICC under this program?
Chairman, this is Pat Whiteside with Nicor. It's an annual process. So we file in March the reconciliation requirement for the prior year's investment. So sitting here today in 2022, we are shortly filing our reconciliation for 2021 investments. And through that annual process, we review those costs, discuss prudency with the interveners and the commission staff, and then resolve that. So currently Nicor Gas has 2 open reconciliations, 2019, 2020, and will soon be filing 2021.
With any of these reconciliations, has any section of it or portion of it been turned down by the ICC to where any of you had to refund those dollars back to the consumers?
I can only speak for Nicor Gas. We have not had any disallowances relative to our prudent investments.
Ameren or Peoples?
That is the same for Ameren. The investments we have made have been approved by the ICC.
Yeah, similar for People's Gas, we have currently 5 reconciliation cases pending, and as described with Nicor, there's an annual process by where we provide information for the commission to review, and so that we are part of the reconciliation cases that occur annually.
So it would be fair to say that the ICC has overlooked each one of your expenditures and has made it that it's justifiable to continue with the way you're putting this surcharge or basing on your rates.
They have, from People's Gas, they have not reviewed all of them yet, Chairman, so they're in the process of going through that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Those are all the questions I have. Representative Minority Spokesperson Wheeler to start us off. Keith?
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Actually, you asked a bulk of the questions I wanted to ask. I guess let's turn it around for a second. Is there anything in this bill Patrick, or even the sponsor can answer this, that changes the oversight thresholds that would be determining what is acceptable, what's not acceptable?
I think from the industry perspective, our view is that the ICC maintains the authority to determine whether investments are prudent or not, just and reasonable. It's a traditional standard used by regulatory commissions throughout the country.
Mr. Chair, this is Brian Mcdaniel with Cub. May I speak to that about the ICC's authority here, sir?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
You know, I think it's interesting when you hear monopolies argue about, part of the monopolies argument here is that the ICC's got all this authority. That's an odd argument for a monopoly to make. Two, the ICC, the way the review works, the utilities tell the ICC, this is our plan for spending. This is what we're going to spend on. This is what we're going to spend up to. And now, because you guys understand the separation of powers, you've already passed this law in 2013 that lays out. It's got paragraphs of things they're allowed to spend money on. It's got a rate cap in up to 5%, which was a high rate cap, right? At the time, every other rate cap was always 2%. These guys got a 5% rate cap in 2013. So, the ICC review isn't much of one. The ICC said that themselves, because as you guys understand, the separations of powers, you've passed the law and the regulators got to follow the law. And the law is very prescriptive. And that's why we're seeing the increases we are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Brian. Representative Wheeler, you more questions?
I guess to follow up with that real quick is there's nothing in this bill that changes that though, right?
Sir, it gets rid of the surcharge. It sunsets the surcharge in December. So it takes all those categories of spending that they're allowed to do on a accelerated, quicker basis and says back to the ICC for you guys.
Right. Okay.
That's what the bill does.
If I may speak to that as well.
Go ahead, Abe.
The legal standard is the same, and this is exactly what we saw with formula rates as well. The prudence and reasonable standards remained with formula rates just as they do with QIP. They didn't change that. What they changed is the process, and they changed it significantly. And the process changes the dynamics of regulatory review such that a meaningful regulatory review is not happening under QIP, which we think would happen under traditional regulation. Thank you.
Thanks, Abe. Keith, you done?
Yeah, no, there's other folks who want to ask questions. Go ahead, Larry. Thank you.
All right, Representative West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one quick question to the sponsor, but I think it was answered in your language. It says the repeals for this past January 1. I'm assuming the new date will be January of 2023. But it already says that it's going to be sunset at the end of the 2023 year. Is that accurate?
Correct. It's ending it a year earlier. So.
Okay. Gotcha. As I was listening to the opponents, I just need clarity because I'm privileged in essence that I don't have to worry about paying my bills. But this past December, I had a quick moment when I saw my $317 NICOR bill. I said to myself, I have to call my state rep. And then it clicked, Hoover Dam, I'm the state rep. And I have this $317 NICOR bill. And we heard from Donna, who says she has a $400 NICOR bill. Black and brown community members with these high bills because the surcharge is higher than it was supposed to be. AARP, senior citizens with these same bills, the vulnerable communities, and none of you talked about that. You talked about what the infrastructure that's needed, and I get it. But we made sacrifices since I've been in office since 2019 of tax increases and all, and we have new dollars coming from this federal side. I need y'all to speak on that. The Black and brown communities who have these surcharges that they have to either pay their heating bill to stay warm and but yet be hungry, or fill their bellies and be cold. I need y'all to speak on that. And let's just forego at the moment the economic increases in the economic vitality of your company, and let's think of the moral issues that's going on. Can any of you as the opponent speak on that? Because in my opinion, when I, as a legislator, if an opponent to my bill just says my bill is a bad bill, but it does not come with solutions, in one ear, out the other. So please speak on that.
Representative, I think each individual company can speak to their efforts to assist their low-income customers, and I would give them an opportunity to do so. As a broad overview for the industry, I would say starting with electric deregulation back in the 1995 period, the Energy Association took the lead in negotiating one of the largest state supplemental low-income heating assistance programs in the country. Since we passed that as part of deregulation, the Energy Association has continued to advocate for different types of assistance for low-income customers, including an up to implementing a percentage of income plan, which is financed strictly by state of Illinois ratepayer dollars. And to some extent, as we have passed other regulatory measures, we have pledged investor dollars into those low-income programs. In addition, I believe every one of our utilities has a standalone program for people who are low income and other customers who may not be qualified as low income, but customers who are challenged to pay their bill. And they operate those programs independently of the state LIHEAP program and percentage of income program. But I'd like to give every company an opportunity to explain the programs they have and how they interact with the state when it comes to low income support.
Yeah. Representative, speaking for People's Gas, Torrance Hinton here. I shared, we supported $41 million in financial assistance through our Share the Warmth program, as well as some other programs that we support. In addition to that, last year, as a result of the pandemic, we provided an additional $30 million as part of the utility disconnection avoidance program and the bill payment assistance program. So we recognize that there are customers who struggle, and we are trying to do our part to support them.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.